back. Today I'm going to be painting this little watercolor piece that I have. I've had this sketch for a bit of a while and I've been dying to paint it, so that's what we're going to be doing. I really like how this one turned out, but I will admit that the main reason that I did this was because I wanted to try out this watercolor pan that I found while I was sorting through my art supplies. And the reason why I'm hesitant to mention that is because this is a lovely green color and yet it doesn't show up that much in the final piece. So big shout out to Greenish Umber for inspiring this piece, even though I did lose you somewhere along the process. But today we're going to be painting this photo of Gabi Garcia, and it's loosely inspired by her role in Encantadia. And the main idea for this piece was going to be to have the warm colors of her headpiece and then paint her and everything around the headpiece with cool or neutral colors. I recently followed Jane Betta on Instagram, and somehow her Instagram has so much more content than I initially expected. That once again I was so inspired to paint with watercolors. I also used my Holbein masking fluid to protect all of these very warm and vibrant colors that I'm planning on leaving out for her headpiece thing. And I really love this whole process. I think there was a lot of different little discoveries that I've made throughout making this piece. But I do think that it could have worked better had I done it on pure cotton paper. And maybe something that's cold pressed with a lot of texture on it that will really hold on to the amount of water that I'm planned on painting with. Because I ended up using this SMLT Art paper, and even though I loved it for gouache, this was meant for acrylics and gouache, and so it did warp quite a bit for some of my water layers, and I had to hold it down with some washi tape. I was also very hesitant at first to use the very dark and cool blue violet, and especially right now just painting it straight on to the paper without any kind of without glazing any kind of color before that. It seemed really nerve-wracking, and especially since I'm just blocking out the shadows first. But I'm so glad that I went with my gut, because I think it worked out in the end, and especially with the greenish umber that I did actually end up using just a tiny bit for her hair, and I kind of wish I used the greenish umber a little bit more. It really is such a beautiful color, and I wish I could see more of it now. But while I was painting, I just really wanted the colors for her hair to be very dark and cool, especially since those are the colors that's going to be framing the very warm jewel tones that I set up for her headpiece. So I didn't end up using the greenish umber that much, but I really did love all of the colors that I did end up using. In a lot of ways, this painting really feels like my older watercolor pieces, because back then was when I didn't really have the foresight to think of watercolors as this sensitive and delicate medium. I was just throwing in all the boldest colors that I had in there and seeing what will come up with it. So that's what it felt like while I was painting this, and I think that's one of the biggest reasons why I was enjoying myself so much. This one actually didn't take me that long to finish. I think maybe about 2 or 3 hours, but it is spread out between a couple of days. But I want to go back to the colors I used for his skin. I had initially had this idea to use burnt sienna for her skin, and then when it came down to it, I just randomly went with the burnt umber, and I'm really happy that I went with the burnt umber instead of the burnt sienna, because burnt sienna is just a little bit warmer than the burnt umber. It's a bit more vibrant, and so I think it would have competed with the colors that I put for her headpiece. So I'm glad that I went with the burnt umber, because it is just a little bit more neutral than the burnt sienna, and so it would do a good job of just staying in the background and letting the headpiece just stand out from it a little bit more. When it came down to taking the masking fluid off, it didn't go as well as I had planned still. I think I've been on a streak of having my masking fluids just almost ruining my paintings. For this one, it didn't feel like it ruined my paintings because I was just enjoying myself too much, but I did tear off some of the surface of the paper. And that's just so sad, but I think the reason why is because it's just sat there for a little bit more than a day before I had the chance to take them out. So when I was able to take them out, I think I took out some of the colors that I chose, that I put down, which just defeated the purpose of laying them down in the first place. But by then I was just enjoying myself way too much to be frustrated by that happening. And also I wasn't as mad about that happening now, because I did just use the masking fluid to mask out the darker and cooler colors away from the jeweled shapes that I wanted. And those colors are all a lot lighter than the colors of her hair. So I really can just paint over that with fresh colors again. I'm not too bothered by that. So that's what I did, and I also ended up using some more lemon yellow to the colors and a little bit less of the red that I had so much initially. I also used this pinkish pearlescent shimmery color just as an accent color, and in hindsight now, I have no idea why I went with that, because I set this whole piece up to use very warm colors for the headpiece. And now I just went over it with a very cool pink color, but I don't know, I'm not really that mad about it. I just think right now that it's a weird choice to make. Maybe later on I'll go over it with a very warm gold. I'm not so sure. I'm kind of into it right now, but I can't really understand the logic behind it. But after all that, I think it just was smooth sailing from there. All I really needed to do was finalize some of the features of her face, really just make her look closer to the actress that I was trying to paint. And for that, and some parts I covered up with my Copic opaque white completely before I went over it with different colors with my colored pencil. This opaque white thing, I just think it's so reliable and it's so opaque that it will just cover anything that you need to cover. I have used white pens before, and even my Posca white, which was my go-to white before this, even that wasn't as opaque as this one, so now I just use this, and it also lasts very long, which is great. I also used gouache, and I just mixed it in with my watercolors to repaint some areas of her nose, because I just think that I made her nose a little bit smaller than Gabby's, so I just want to fix that. But these final parts didn't really take that long. I think overall this piece just went by really quickly. I was enjoying myself so much, and I also think that really it just didn't take that long to finish. But I'm really happy with where it's at right now, and I'm confident with leaving it where it's at. But I'm curious to see what you guys think. Should I go over some of the strands with colored pencils and all that? But yeah, that is it for today's video. Thank you everybody for watching. Thank you especially to my patrons for supporting me. I will be seeing you guys again soon.